Everybody, welcome. The host from today is Marko Turk. He is originally from Croatia. Can everybody hear me? Sorry. Okay, he's originally from Croatia. He's working as a higher education pedagogy professor. He has specializations in higher education policies, in teaching and learning, institutional design, curriculum development, and higher education pedagogy. And since he's doing also introduction about himself, I will pass it over to you, Marco.
Thank you, Marian. Thank you to all of you. It's my great pleasure being with you and giving you my lecture about instructional design, especially instructional design in higher education. Of course, I will talk about education globally, not only about higher education, of course. Can you hear me? Can you see me? And can you see presentation? So let's define these technical questions and technical issues at the beginning.
Everything is great.
Okay, excellent then. Thank you. So once more, it's my really great pleasure being with you and giving you this lecture. So I'm going to talk about future-proof careers in online education, and my focus will be on instructional design and instructional designers. So let's start with presentation or outline. So I would like to present you what I'm going to talk about during my lecture. At the beginning, I will be short and sharp with my introduction. I will introduce myself. I will introduce, of course, my professional path, my career path, what I'm doing, and my interests, my professional interests. Then I would like to start my discussion from a more broader, or I would even say more wider perspective related to contemporary reality, not only educational reality, but more, as I said, more broader and more wider contemporary reality. Then we will move further to educational reality. What is contemporary educational reality from my point of view? Furthermore, we are going to talk about instructional design. So I'm going to answer the questions that you can see on the slide. What is instructional design? I will present you some basic roots of instructional design, or we can say some history of instructional design. And main focus of my presentation will be on the fifth question. So who are instructional designers? In the context of the fifth question, I'm going to tackle some questions and some topics related to instructional designers' responsibilities, duties, jobs, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I will try to answer the question, why do we need instructional designers in contemporary online or on-site education? So that's my presentation outline.
Oh, Marcus, sorry to interrupt you. I think your mic has a bit of an issue. Maybe switch it off and then back on again. Yep, it's showing that it's off, and maybe, yep, perfect.
Okay.
Yep, back.
I don't know what happened. Can you see presentation now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. The presentation is not shared yet. No, we can see you with the camera.
Just a second.
We can see the presentation from our side. I mean, for me at least. Who is Marko Turk?
Okay. Okay. In case if you can't see presentation, please tell me. So I will start with some basics about myself. So I will try to answer who am I. So firstly, I would like to position myself geographically, of course. So I'm coming from Croatia. Originally, I'm from Croatia. So if we talk, administrative language, I would say that by nationality I'm Croat, but I would say even more precisely, that I perceive myself as a global citizen or as a world citizen. So Croatia is a Mediterranean country bordered by Italy, Slovenia, Hungary, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Montenegro. So even though I am from Croatia, as I said, I'm a world citizen. So now currently I am working as a professor of higher education pedagogy at the Tumen State University at School of Advanced Studies in Russian Federation. And I have my scientific position, so I'm senior researcher in social sciences, and my special interest or my scientific and research background is related to educational sciences or pedagogy. I've been working in academia since 2007, so since 2007, and as I said, my teaching and research interests are primarily related to higher education topics, to different questions and different issues related to higher education. And then if we want to discuss more precisely, I would say that I'm particularly interested in academic profession questions and especially changes in academic profession, well-being in academia, teaching and learning, and instructional design. So as you can see, all these topics and my teaching and research interests are related to education, and of course with some specificities and with some specific issues and questions that I've been dealing with. And of course, you can find me if you are interested in my work, or if you want to contact me in the future, you can find me on LinkedIn, ResearchGate, and of course, Google Scholar and OSED, or you can approach me via email, via my private and my official or professional email. So that's just, as I said, sharp and short about myself and who am I. So today, as it is announced, I'm going to talk about instructional design. But usually, when I talk about educational questions or educational issues, I prefer to start with some with more broader and more wider perspective, because it's very important. Because educational systems, and educational questions or institutions or whatever we are talking about. So they are not some isolated islands. They are not some ivory towers isolated from their society, from the environment. And because of that, it's essential to start our discussion with a broader perspective, with a perspective related to broader contemporary reality. So if we are approaching contemporary reality, we can say that the world is changing faster than ever. You know, the staggering emergence of new technologies, rapid social, economic, and political shifts, and an increasing urgency to adopt more sustainable methods of living are reshaping our world. And because of that, the world is changing faster than ever. If we are discussing, or if we are talking about our cities, urbanization is reshaping the way we inhabit the planet. In Australia, for instance, 90%, around 90% of people live in urban cities, in urban centers. In Singapore and other parts of Asia, this figure is even higher. So we need to rethink the ways we live together in this rapidly changing space, and projects in this category seek to build cities that harness human knowledge and technology to shape cities that are smart, resilient, and more livable, if I can say so, for all. Transport, for instance, in a globalized world, we are constantly trading time for space. We commute, we ship, we teleconference across the time zone. Energy allows us to live comfortable and productive lives, but energy is also at a crux. of our troubled relationship with the planet. Water, the most important natural resource. If energy is the beating heart of our society, water is lifeblood. We can say is lifeblood. For a water utility in a drought-prone country, efficiency is everything. For instance, if we are discussing the technology-driven world, the technology-driven world in which we live in is a world filled with promise, but also challenges. Cars that drive themselves, machines that read X-rays, and algorithms that respond to customer service inquiries are all manifestations of powerful new forms of automation. And in that type of world, of course, that we are faced with different issues, with different questions related to educational issues. Educational questions and educational reality is influenced, is pushed by more wider and by more broader questions from our society and from our environment. Our educational reality is faced with diversified pupils and students' learning needs. Our educational reality is faced with altered attention curve. For instance, according to a Canadian researcher's study done in the early 2000s, emphasized that the average attention span of humans decreased from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. Learning or classroom attention span or attention curve decreased from the range of 15 to 20 minutes to a range of 7 to 10 minutes. If we, for instance, compare that with the recent online environment, we might perceive that online content creators begin to develop even shorter and more engaging content for the viewers. And in that context, we are also faced with changed teaching and learning environments. Contemporary educational reality is also faced with different education and labor market reality. So, for instance, McKinsey Global Institute report, which was published 44 years ago, suggests that over 375 million workers may need to switch occupations and, of course, consequently, need to learn new skills in the future. For instance, the pandemic nowadays may drive even greater growth in certain sectors, especially healthcare, especially online education, especially technology. And of course, in that context, I would agree, or I completely agree with the statement of Rafael Brass from Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, who says that schools will need to serve a new type of learner. And the crucial element of our educational reality is related to our pupils and to our students. As I mentioned previously, their needs and their requirements are different from the time when I was a student, or even more when I was a pupil. And this brings us smoothly to further debate, which is based on generational differences. We should be mindful of when discussing contemporary educational reality. So when we are discussing contemporary educational reality, we shouldn't forget discussion related to Generation Alpha. So Generation Alpha is a term coined by sociologist Mark McRindle. And the term Generation Alpha applies to children born between 2011 and 2025. And according to McRindle, 2.5 million alphas are born globally every week. While their parents, for instance, the millennials, are informally known as a digital natives, many alphas will have a digital footprint before they even understand the term. For instance, celebrity kids like Prince William's son George already have an Instagram account managed by his parents, or I would say managed by some employees at Buckingham Palace. However, a Generation Alpha is the first group who will be immersed in technology their entire lives. These kids are also referred to as the glass generation, as their glass-fronted devices will be their main medium of communication. In comparison, Generation Z, the group born between 1995 and 2010, grew up when social media was being established. For them, technology, for them, different gadgets, they are a tool. For alphas, it's a way of life. So in primary and secondary school, alphas will move from a structured auditory learning method to a visual. So they will move from, of course, they will move from a structured or auditory learning method to a visual, hands-on approach. They will acquire problem-solving skills and experience peer-to-peer learning. Connected classrooms for alphas will be the norm. Researchers emphasize that Generation Alpha will take on jobs that don't yet exist. And so this generation will be well educated, and most of wealthy families primarily will invest in increasingly specialized education. Also, we have to be aware that a percentage of alphas will avoid the higher education or will avoid the traditional higher education system and opt for cheaper online learning or for different forms of online learning. Furthermore, as they grow up or as they grow older and develop verbal skills, voice communication with devices will become common. Even today it's common, but in the future for alpha generation will become even more common. Also, what I would like to share with you is a recent study by Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers from New Jersey. So, according to their research, the world, and they are the world's largest technical professional organization. So they know that 40% of millennial parents are open to replacing or supplementing a human nanny with a stay-at-home robot nanny. Millennial parents are the drivers connecting their children to devices with the aim of providing a better nurturing experience. Their openness to their children engaging with the World Wide Web has enabled companies to create products and spaces that target Generation Alpha and millennials. So as more millennials become parents and put their trust in artificial intelligence to entire their children, big companies will develop platforms that draw in alphas and indirectly millennials. And so in that context, educational specialists, people who work in education context, we have to ask ourselves, how do we prepare to meet the challenges and opportunities the future will bring? One of the potential answers is, of course, true educational system. And in that context, or for such context and for such environment and for such group of different and diversified needs of new learners, educational system needs new educational experts or new educational professionals. And the answer, so we can ask ourselves, who they are, who they really are, and the answer or potential answer might be that they are instructional designers. But before we answer the question, who are instructional designers? Firstly, we have to answer the question, what is instructional design, and how we define instructional design from theoretical and from expert position. We can say that instructional design at the same time can be regarded as both, as a science and an art. So why? A science because it is deeply rooted in learning theories that derives its principles from psychology, from sociology, from philosophy, from pedagogy and educational sciences. And an art because the designing of instructional materials is a highly creative process. So if we want to simplify the definition of instructional design, we can say it is both. It's science and it's an art because of the reasons I've explained. If we go a step further, we can say that the concept of instructional design has been described in many different ways. But in essence, it consists of solving instructional problems by systematically analyzing the conditions of learning and designing a satisfying learning experience. Therefore, instructional design refers to the systematic process of translating principles of learning and instruction into plans or specifications for instructional materials or activities. Moreover, if we want to emphasize purposes of instructional design, we can say that instructional design improves learning and instruction by following a systematic and organized, I would say organized approach for teaching and learning. Instructional design helps to improve management of instructional design and development procedures by monitoring and controlling, but I would add by guiding the functions of the systematic approach. Furthermore, instructional design helps to improve evaluation process, including learner performance. And in addition, instructional design helps to test or build learning or instructional theory by means of theory-based design with a systematic instructional model. When we are discussing instructional design, of course, we have to tackle some roots of instructional design. And for the purpose of that part of discussion, I would like to tackle some of the most influential or some of the most important scholars and researchers in the field of instructional design. Instructional designers today consider the work of Thorndike, who introduced his instructional strategies in 1913, as very valuable and as very important, as I would say even as essential for instructional design development. Thereafter, in 1922, Bobbitt introduced his work on job analysis, and Taylor followed in 1942 with his work on objectives and criterion reference testing. During World War II, the US military made extensive use of technological devices for training, for instance, and that is also perceived as an important important introduction or as an important influence for the instructional design development. During the 1960s, the focus turned to work on the systematic application of behavioral psychology to the design of instruction, for example, Skinner or Gagne or Gleiser, with particular emphasis on self-paced individual interaction. Then from 1965 to the early 90s, behaviorist thinking gradually gave way to cognitive psychology and constructivist theory, and the emphasis was on new forms of assessment, as well as on instructional systems development, the steps of instruction, and the elaboration of the theory of instruction. And I would say that I can conclude this part of related to roots of instructional design with saying that the need for instructional design does become clear as it plays a very important role in the learning experience and address aspects such as the growing demand for a skilled workforce, access to learning opportunities, outcomes-based teaching and learning, and probability of skills between different fields of study. And now I would say the central question is, who are instructional designers, or how we can describe professionals who are instructional designers or who describe themselves as instructional designers. We can say that instructional designers are facilitators of successful learning experiences. Instructional designers design learning materials that are functional as well as attractive or appealing to the learner or to the user of the product, or to the learner in educational process. Furthermore, instructional designers use established learning theories and principles as problem-solved procedures or models to guide them in making decisions about their design. Instructional designers, if we talk about instructional designer profile, we might say that instructional designers are primarily focused on student success and use a wide range of methods to achieve that goal. And they are highly involved in teaching and learning research. Moreover, instructional designers are highly and diversely qualified, far from one-size-fits-all, professions, and bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. So we can describe them as educational specialists, as pedagogues, as educational psychologists, as IT experts, as experts in higher education studies, as experts in distance learning. So as you can see from the slide, primarily instructional designer is an interdisciplinary profession influenced or approached from different fields, different social science fields. That's essential. But what I would like to underline is what I said. It's an interdisciplinary profession, highly interdisciplinary profession. Moreover, instructional designers are experienced in education teaching, in technology development, and graphic design. And what is interesting, for instance, in the United States nowadays, we have around 13,000 instructional designers in different educational institutions and in different educational organizations. Of course, when we are discussing or when we are talking about instructional designers and their profile, it's important to mention their responsibilities, or we have to answer the question, what are responsibilities of instructional designer? So when we are talking about responsibilities, we can say that in the literature, we can find 4 different categories of responsibilities or of instructional designer responsibilities. So the first responsibility is that instructional designers, design instructional materials and courses, particularly for digital delivery. That is essential, that is important. So even though they can work in different educational spheres and different educational contexts, primarily they should be responsible for designing instructional materials for digital delivery. The second responsibility, they manage the efforts of professors or teachers or lecturers, then administration, IT, other instructional designers, and of course, and other important others, to achieve better student learning. So their focus is on student learning and student success, as I've emphasized previously. Moreover, they train professors or they train teachers to leverage technology and implement pedagogy effectively. And last but not least, they support professors, they support teachers and lecturers when they run into technical or instructional challenges. And now I would like to present you some recent research results related to instructional designers. A couple of years ago, I think two years ago, in the United States, national research among instructional designers was taken, and they were asked how important are the following skills that you can see on the slide or expertise in their role. So from the slide, you can see which skills or which expertise they have found as the most important for their everyday job and for their everyday tasks. So as you can see, learning and technologies, so skills and knowledge and competences related to learning and to different type of technologies. Then project management, because you will see a bit later, they might be described also as some sort of project managers. Then skills and competences related to learning science or learning theory, so different learning theories from the perspective of psychology or educational psychology, educational sciences, and so on. Instructional design models, strategic planning, then teaching experience, research, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, they were asked what do they actually do, and their answer or their answers is possible to summarize into 4 categories: design, manage, train, and support. So let's take a look descriptors or descriptions for each of these categories. So they are designers. What do they actually do? They are designers, so they design. What do they design? They design or they redevelop existing courses. So as you can see from one of the answers, research participant emphasized, I design and develop courses or materials or ideas to support the professor. Whatever they ask, I find a way to accomplish, usually with free software. They author instructional content, so they are responsible for designing curriculums, of course, both digital and paper. For instructors and facilitators, they provide them, of course, they are also responsible for professional development of instructors and facilitators or professors, lecturers, and so on. Moreover, they are responsible for quality assurance. So they might be described as a quality assurance testers. So as you can see from one of the answers, one research participant emphasized, I make sure course resources meet accessibility and quality assurance standards. Then they manage. They are, as I said, they are project managers. They provide project management, we can metaphorically say, from cradle to grave for the course. They campaign for instructional design. So they work to promote services and policies for students and for faculties at a distance. They also liaison. So they work as a liaisons between their academic administration, professors or teachers and lecturers, curriculum designers, and IT. So they are some sort of connectors, or they are connecting different stakeholders in the educational educational network. Furthermore, they train. They are, of course, technology trainers. They are pedagogy trainers. And of course, they provide professional development efforts. So they train faculties, or they train teachers in high schools or in primary schools, how to use different technology gadgets, how to use different technology tools. But not only for technology, they are also responsible for pedagogy training. So they are there for enhancing teaching competencies and teaching skills. They are there for enhancing different skills for related to teaching methods, to teaching practice, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, they support. So they are responsible for LMS system. So they are responsible for managing LMS system. They are responsible for of course for timely support. So they offer different one-on-one consultations for faculty or for educators who are looking to resolve some problems or issues. And they are also responsible for providing support in the process of migration, course migration from face-to-face courses or on-site courses to online courses. And my last part, you know, when I was preparing this presentation, I thought how to make an effective last part, or let's say an effective conclusion of this presentation. And I decided to use this question: why do we need instructional designers in contemporary education, or we could say in contemporary online education? And I've decided to use a quotation from one of my research results, so that I did a couple of years ago, related to some changes in educational system and in educational context. And I decided to use this particular quotation because I think it's an effective and excellent descriptor. Why do we need instructional designers in our contemporary educational reality? And the quotation is, so one of our research participants emphasized, online teaching, or just a teaching, is something mandatory that is almost our everyday job in academia, or in high schools, or in primary schools, or in private sector, for instance, educators or educational trainers. They are responsible for teaching, and teaching is their everyday job. However, the second part is more related to academic and educational context. However, we are not educated on how to teach, especially in an online environment. We teach how we want. No one supports us, and nobody really cares about that. Isn't that a paradox? I would say it is a paradox, and because of that, we need instructional designers in contemporary online educational environment. That's it for my part. Thank you for your attention, and now I am free and I am open for your questions. I would like to hear your views, your suggestions. I would like to hear maybe some your thoughts related to this topic, maybe from some broader and wider perspective, not only related to the topics that I've tackled during my presentation, but also to the topics that I've tackled in my presentation. So feel free to share your views and your questions with me and with the rest of the audience.
Thank you, Marco. That was very interesting for me personally. I'm not sure. I hope everyone else feels the same. I think I will begin with my questions. If people don't mind, feel free to participate as well. What came to my mind? You speak of the importance of instructional design within the education field. But for example, I myself am a psychologist. My background is in a bachelor in psychology. But now I'm in marketing, for example, and I've been in commerce before that. And as you said, because the business environment or any sort of environment is changing constantly, especially with the the recent pandemic, etc., we are moving towards more and more of a digitalization across all fields. Surely instructional design comes in, it can span further than just education into other fields such as business, because for example, if you have an organization and you have new processes developing per se, you can design courses to help the employees adapt to those changes. So for example, if we have anyone here from all sorts of backgrounds, for example, we had someone from communication, I think, you can also apply your previous background and design something to help other people learn new skills. Surely, what would you like to comment?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your question and your observation. It's an excellent observation, I have to say. And I would say, a very simple answer. Yes, absolutely. Because instructional design, as I said during my presentation, primarily it's an interdisciplinary field, approach from different perspectives, not only from educational sciences or psychology or pedagogy, but also it might be approached from management, economy, business, communicational sciences, and so on. So absolutely, and some rules and I would say, yeah, maybe we can say instructional design regulations and instructional design framework might be translated in different fields and different contexts, not only educational contexts. Sure. We can say, yes, instructional design as a method or as approach has its roots in educational sciences and psychology and pedagogy. However, we can translate these roots and frameworks and structures, applications, yes, of instructional design in different fields.
Sure. And I wonder, maybe we had a student here from Digital Education Management Program, Valesia. Could you maybe expand on that from your experience?
Hello, guys. Do you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Hello, all. Yes, coming. My background comes from accounting and finance, then comes to digital marketing, and we are running a family business, which is a preparatory center for graduate studies. So we prepare for standardized tests: GMAT, GRE, TOEFL, and IELTS. And I'm personally a GMAT consultant. We are associated with INSEAD and HEC Paris, and generally I always with when it comes to the GMAT and quant parts of the GMAT. So I really wanted to pose a question. When the pandemic situation have arisen, we realized that we have to make online classrooms from scratch. And hopefully we had all our materials for 10 and more years, all our materials electronic ones. So this assisted us a lot to turn from the one day to the other, from face-to-face teaching to online teaching. Nevertheless, we faced a lot of problems. And the main problem was that, for example, the verbal teacher, which is my mother, she was okay with all the technological tools that she had to use in order to be okay with the course. But other teachers, they weren't familiar with all this procedure. So the course turned to be, for example, we had face-to-face course 3 hours a week per subject, per section. and the course tend to be a little bit boring, or the people starting like only speaking for 3 hours, and people were losing all their attention span in some minutes. And I was taking in from the question that you mentioned before about the attention span and the attention deficit that maybe that the online instruction creates. And this I wanted to ask is, because I'm going to form new online courses for my preparatory center. The question is, do you think that it's better to create small videos and also have a blended distraction in the place of having a big video like 2 or 3 hours, and using this in order to instruct people?
Thank you for your question. I would say a very practical question, and I really appreciate practical questions. Yeah, I would say absolutely it's better to have diversified methods and different methods, especially in online environment. If you are instructional designer in online environment, diversified methods is something which is I would say essential. So short videos, 5 minutes videos, supported by written material, short written material. Then short written material supported by some written tasks that learners should do. So different approaches and different methods. Lectures, if lectures are online, not 45 or hour and a half lectures, but maybe 20 minutes lecture, and then tasks for learners, tasks for participants. We have to involve them more and so on. For instance, today I had my class with my students because we still have online classes because of pandemic and everything else. And it's a regular 90 minutes class. And I splitted my class in six different groups, time groups. So 90 minutes, I split it in 6 different time groups, supported by different type of materials and by different type of methods that I used during each period of time. So students are actively involved. They participate much effectively and much more than in regular classes, and we are dealing with that attention span. That's the most important part, I would say.
But then my idea, sorry for interrupting, but when I was listening, I was thinking, surely again, in one way, digital education maybe can enhance the reduction of the attention span. But surely we can design courses to reverse that effect, so you can go back and forth with it and play around to see how you could maybe, I'm not sure, create a training, online training tools or devices that would help you kind of overcome that reduction of attention span, and somehow point that out to you, and, give you some exercises that would kind of bring you back to the longer attention span. So that's an idea for a startup if someone is listening.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that currently we are trying to answer to recent needs that we are faced with, online learning, online teaching, pandemic, and all that we are faced with. But your suggestion is excellent as a further step, as a one step further, in terms of that we have to experiment, but scientifically experiment with online teaching and online learning. But in that case, it should be a longitudinal research, supported by all
findings. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. And to make an addition to this, I realized that because this situation have arisen in March of 2020, and now we are 1.5 years after, almost 2 years. And we created like smaller lectures, and we put like many quizzes and diagnostic tests and rotation in the classroom. Let's say Mike talk now, Mike speak now, and after Maria talks and all the stuff. And we started to create more interacting material, but generally we are still in the creation. That's why I'm taking in this masters. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And maybe just to speak of the masters, do you think, because I think, again, when we kind of call a program digital education, maybe it makes people think that this is only for those who are interested in like teaching, you know, just again adapting to the result that we're left with essentially with the whole pandemic situation. But would you say now, having experienced the master yourself, who would it be helpful for outside of the education field? So again, how applicable is it to other fields, etc.?
The question is if these masters assist people to get into not only the education field, but also other fields. This is the question.
Yes. So, for example, if I'm not sure whether you have, whether your colleagues, your fellow students, maybe they come from outside of education. So,
yes.
Essentially, the question is, who could this master be useful for? Maybe. So, not just for those within education, maybe also outside of it, and your personal opinion.
Yeah, sure. I think that let's say I am a person with more than 12 years of experience. Okay. So I'm not coming into this masters like, you know, a small fish or something like 20 years, 21 years old. I'm 35 years old. So generally, I came across with material which I know very well, and with other material which is emerging and it's totally new. So I think because the material is comes from different sectors, let's say we have also like marketing research, and we have also digital marketing. I have been also in digital marketing, and I'm a marketing and IT manager. So I have a very diversified background, so I'm covered in in many sectors. But generally, for people coming now in this field, in education field, but also for people that want to create, for example, seminars, let's say in a consulting group, or let's say in an enterprise, in Big Four or something like that. I think this would also be helpful. As there are courses like leadership and educational management and all the stuff, but also this is helpful for people that are coming from education, such as professors, and you know, because they don't have any background. I have realized that they don't have any background, let's say in managerial accounting or in management. So for me, maybe these fields are already set, but for a person that comes now in the market, I think this program is very helpful.
Perfect. And maybe just, sorry.
Marco.
No, you go first. And then
yeah, I would say that even though I am not familiar with the program, I would say only from its name, it might be interesting, you know, or it might be good for HRM specialists or communicational specialists, or for some consultants, for even, for instance, even though I am university professor, I have my my private consulting company, my private consulting agency. And for instance, I don't see why some consultants wouldn't be interested in that program. So that's for sure.
Sure.
And I just wanted to ask other professors that are here today, or anyone within education, maybe you know, the classical education background, when you now had to teach online, how is the online teaching? Does it differ, and how, from traditional, you know, educational approach? Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. Well,
just speaking from personal experience, what are perhaps the difficulties that you are facing on a daily nowadays with the online education need and so on?
Well, I will describe, or I will approach this question more. I will describe more metaphorically. University professors are a bit traditional, and sometimes I think that I can critique university professors because I am part of this of this area. So sometimes they are really, you know, traditional and a bit stubborn creatures, and they are not really I do not generalize now, but as far as I understand and according to my experience, they are not always open to new ideas, to new ways, especially new ways of teaching. Because, you know, when you are a university professor, fundamentally, you are scientist and researcher, and additionally, you are a teacher. Most of university professors primarily perceive themselves as a scientists and or researchers, and secondly, as a teachers or professors. So teaching and you know, teaching in academia is not something which is valued. And I can say that because I've been researching, you know, teaching competencies in higher education for the last 15 years. And that is something which is, you know, research-based conclusion. Teaching in academia is not equally valued as a research. That's it. And because of that, they are not, or we are not, let's talk in we form, because I'm part of that society. We are not always open for new ways, especially in teaching, you know. And now online teaching is like a, you know, like a torture for some of them. So now we have to learn new methods. What is LMS? How we have to do with LMS? How should we prepare, you know, materials for LMS, and so on and so forth. So different questions, but I would say that the main reason is readiness. Their readiness to accept new ways, or our readiness to accept new ways of online teaching and learning in academia. That's the main issue.
And also perhaps from a student perspective too, how ready they are to kind of, you know, adapt to the, I mean, maybe for them it's easier due to.
Well, I would say if online teaching is institutional culture, or if it's, you know, somehow bounded or closely related to institutional culture, and if online teaching is a part of institutional agenda, students are more flexible. They are younger and they are much more flexible in that context. But in my opinion, if we want to develop students' ideas and students' thoughts related to online teaching must be part of our institutional agenda and of our institutional culture.
Sure. And I think this maybe goes back to the difference between, for example, business schools or, as you said, you know, private short courses versus that higher education, the traditional. So
yeah, I would say that business schools are more, how to say, very, very simple, I would say, more practically oriented. You know, they are, business schools are more oriented towards, you know, practical skills, practical competences. They want, you know, some practical knowledge. Their students are more, I would say, more focused on practical knowledge than students in academia. I don't have, you know, I don't have so much experience in that field in terms of
you're more than welcome to come and speak to our students.
So that's my point.
Cool. Brilliant. Any other questions that anyone might have? Maybe if you don't want to put on your microphone, you can type in the chat. No?
Sorry, Anastasia, has something you asked?
No, I just asked if anyone else has any additional questions, perhaps, or anything they'd like to say, actually. Anything they'd like to add?
Okay, sorry, because I was out because of a technological problem. Sorry, thank you.
No problem. I think this is probably it. I think we're good to go. Thank you once again, everyone, for being here today. Thank you, Marko, in particular, for such an interesting discussion and lecture. And I hope we were able to show what digital education is all about, its importance, in particular instructional design, and hopefully yeah, everyone here today will take away something for themselves.
Yeah, so once more, I would like to thank you for your invitation. It was my great pleasure being here with you today, and I really enjoyed in discussion and conversation with you. And I hope that we'll have time to meet.
Sure. Likewise, we're always waiting for you at GBSB Global. Thanks a lot. Thank you, guys.
Bye bye. Have a nice
Yeah, bye-bye. You
day.
too, likewise.
Bye.